Last night, I woke up to the strangest and most terrifying sight of my life. My wife was sitting up in bed, completely still, her eyes wide open and fixed on something in the darkness at the far end of our room. At first, I thought she was just having a bad dream, but when I whispered her name, she didn't respond. She just kept staring, as if she was in a trance. My heart started pounding as I followed her gaze, and that's when I saw it. A dark, shadowy figure, almost like a demon, standing silently in the corner. Its outline barely visible, but its presence so strong I could feel the air grow colder. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, a trick of the shadows, but the fear was too real. And the way my wife was watching it made me realize I wasn't the only one seeing this thing. For years, I've heard stories about people seeing shadows or demons during sleep paralysis, but I never believed it could happen to both people in the same room at the same time, until now. In this video, I want to share every detail of that night. The fear, the helplessness, the desperate struggle to move, and the question that still haunts me. Was it all just a nightmare? Or did we both really see the demon in our room? If you've ever woken up to someone you love staring into the darkness, or if you've ever seen a shadow figure at night, you're not alone. Let's face the darkness together. It started as a completely normal evening. My wife and I had dinner together, laughed about something silly on TV, and scrolled through our phones before bed. There was nothing unusual about the day. No arguments, no bad news, just the comfort of our usual routine. We both got ready for bed, brushed our teeth, and talked about our plans for the weekend. The room was quiet. The only sound was the soft hum of the fan and the distant noise of cars outside. I remember glancing at my wife as she settled under the covers, her face peaceful and relaxed. I turned off the lights, expecting to drift off to sleep like any other night. As I lay there, I felt a strange sense of calm, almost as if the world had slowed down for a moment. I closed my eyes, thinking about how lucky I was to have someone I loved sleeping beside me. Little did I know that an ordinary night was about to become the most terrifying experience of our lives. Sometimes, the scariest stories begin when everything seems perfectly normal. I woke up suddenly, not sure what had disturbed me. The room was pitch black, but I could sense that something was off. I turned over and saw my wife sitting up in bed, her eyes wide open, staring at the far corner of the room. At first, I thought she was just having a nightmare, but she didn't move or blink. She just kept staring, completely still. I whispered her name, but she didn't respond. My heart started to race as I realized she wasn't asleep, but she wasn't really awake either. The air felt heavier, and the shadows in the room seemed deeper than usual. I tried to convince myself it was just a bad dream, but the fear was too real. I reached out to touch her arm, and she flinched, but her eyes never left that dark corner. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. I had never seen her like this before, and the sense of dread in the room was overwhelming. It was as if we were both waiting for something to happen, something we couldn't see but could definitely feel. As I followed my wife's gaze, I saw it, a dark, shadowy figure standing in the corner of our room. At first, it was just a shape, barely visible against the darkness, but the longer I stared, the clearer it became. The figure was tall and thin, with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce right through me. I felt a wave of cold fear wash over me, and I couldn't look away. My wife's breathing grew shallow, and I could see her hands gripping the sheets tightly. The shadow didn't move, but its presence was overwhelming, filling the room with a sense of dread I had never felt before. I tried to tell myself it was just a trick of the light, but deep down, I knew it was something more. The room felt colder, and I could see my breath in the air. The shadow's eyes locked with mine, and for a moment, I felt completely exposed. as if it could see every fear I'd ever had. I wanted to run, to wake up, to do anything but stare into those eyes. But I was frozen in place, trapped by the shadow's gaze. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't respond. It was as if the shadow's presence had paralyzed me, holding me down with an invisible force. My wife was still sitting up, her eyes wide and unblinking, and I could see the terror on her face. I wanted to reach out to her, to pull her close and protect her, but I couldn't move a muscle. My heart was pounding so loudly I thought it would burst, and my breath came in short, shallow gasps. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in around us, and the shadow seemed to grow larger, filling the space with its darkness. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I could feel the sweat on my forehead, the cold air on my skin, and the weight of the shadow pressing down on me. It was the most helpless I had ever felt, and I started to wonder if we would ever escape. The fear was suffocating, and I could see the same panic in my wife's eyes. We were both trapped, unable to move or speak, completely at the mercy of whatever was in our room. The shadow's eyes glowed brighter, and I felt a chill run down my spine. My wife whispered, "It's watching us," her voice barely audible but filled with terror. The demon's gaze was so intense, it felt like it was looking straight into my soul. I tried to look away, but I couldn't break free from its stare. The room grew even colder, and I could see my wife shivering beside me. The demon's face became clearer, twisted into a cruel, mocking smile that made my blood run cold. I could feel its presence pressing down on us, making it hard to breathe. My wife squeezed my hand, and I could feel her fear through her trembling fingers. The demon didn't move, but its eyes followed us, never blinking, never looking away. I wanted to protect my wife, to shield her from the demon's gaze, but I was just as helpless as she was. The fear was overwhelming, and I started to wonder if we would ever be free from the demon's watchful eyes. As the minutes dragged on, I realized that my wife and I were both experiencing the same nightmare. We were both awake, both seeing the same shadow, both feeling the same fear. I whispered to her, asking if she could see it, and she nodded, her eyes never leaving the demon in the corner. It was a terrifying realization that we were both trapped in the same nightmare, unable to wake up or escape. I tried to remember everything I'd ever heard about sleep paralysis, hoping to find some comfort in the knowledge that it was just a temporary state, but the fear was too real. My wife whispered that she had seen the demon before, that it had visited her in her dreams, but she had never told anyone. I felt a wave of guilt for not believing her, for dismissing her fears as just bad dreams. Now, we were both living the nightmare together, and there was no escape. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, and the demon's presence grew stronger with each passing second. We were both trapped, both helpless, both at the mercy of the demon in our room. The demon's shadow began to move, slowly gliding closer to the bed. My wife squeezed my hand tighter, and I could feel her panic rising. I tried to move, to break free from the paralysis, but my body wouldn't respond. The demon's eyes locked with mine, and I felt a wave of terror wash over me. I screamed inside my mind, willing myself to move, to protect my wife, to do anything to stop the demon from reaching us. The room seemed to close in around us, the darkness growing thicker, the air colder. My wife whispered, "Don't let it touch us," her voice trembling with fear. I focused all my energy on moving a single finger, hoping that if I could break the paralysis, the nightmare would end. Finally, with a sudden jolt, I broke free, sitting up in bed, gasping for air. The demon vanished, and the room was silent once again. My wife and I clung to each other, both shaking, both grateful to be free from the demon's grasp. But the fear remained, and we knew the nightmare was far from over. In the days and weeks that followed, the fear lingered. My wife and I found it hard to sleep, always watching the clock as it crept toward midnight. We talked about what had happened, trying to make sense of the nightmare we had shared. We both remembered the same details: the shadow in the corner, the demon's glowing eyes, the feeling of being watched. Queej tried to move on, to return to our normal routine, but the memory of that night haunted us. We avoided talking about it with friends and family, afraid they wouldn't believe us. But we knew what we had seen, and we knew we weren't alone. The experience brought us closer together, but it also left us with a lingering sense of unease. We still have nights when we wake up, heart pounding, afraid to open our eyes. But we know now that we can face the darkness together, no matter what nightmares come our way. If you've ever shared a nightmare with someone you love, or seen a shadow in your room, know that you're not alone, and that together we can face our fears. As I look back on that night, I realize how powerful fear can be, especially when it's shared with someone you love. Whether the demon in our room was a product of our minds or something truly supernatural, the terror we felt was real, and it changed the way we see the darkness forever. If you've ever woken up to someone you love staring into the shadows, or if you've ever seen a figure in your room that shouldn't be there, you know how hard it is to shake off that feeling of being watched. You're not alone. Countless others have faced the same nightmares, the same shadows, and the same questions that never seem to have answers. I hope that by sharing our story, I can help someone else feel a little less alone in their own struggle. If you have your own true scary sleep nightmare stories, please share them in the comments below. I read everyone. Don't forget to subscribe for more real horror stories and nightmares every week. And remember, next time you wake up in the middle of the night and see someone you love staring into the darkness, don't be too quick to dismiss it as just a dream. Sometimes, the things we fear most are the ones that are watching us when we think we're all alone.